So, welcome to our last class on camera workshops. I'm going to go ahead and dive right into some of the basics of conducting an interview on camera, how you work with the camera, some mechanics of audio visuals, and then we'll do our exercises. Did everyone get slides? Okay. Fantastic. So, basics, we'll talk about video conferences, we'll talk about camera work, press conference, and then we'll do our video conference exercise, followed by, we won't do an exercise, no one's doing an interview, but we will do our press conference. Letitia's going to do the press conference. She's going to play the chairperson of DEP. All right, so let's talk first about sound. When you're working with audio-visual equipment and you're working with sound, sometimes there's this awkward situation where you're trying to talk in the microphone and it sort of blurts or makes a little buzz sound. Has that happened to anyone before?
Yeah.
A couple of techniques I recommend you use to overcome that. One I call the H technique, the other I call the increasing volume pull technique. The H technique is simply imagining the letter H before the first word you're going to say. So if you're going to say Mr. So-and-so, just imagine in your head H, Mr. And when you imagine the letter H, it will make that H movement with your mouth and will let a little air out to prevent you from a hard start. Does that make sense? So when I say the word hello, there's a breath to it. Hello. When I say the word but, there's a hard start to it. So I can imagine the letter H before the letter B in but, and say but. It's almost like a microscopic but. Does that make sense to everyone? So imagine the letter H and you'll let out a little air and it will allow you to prevent a hard start, which the microphone could not like. The other technique I recommend, increasing volume pull technique. Start with the microphone a little far away from your mouth and bring it closer as you begin talking. So if I'm going to say, Mr. So-and-so, did you see this report? I use the H technique and I bring it closer as I begin. Mr. So-and-so, tell me the specifics of this press conference. Does that make sense? So you bring it in as you hear the feedback. Because a lot of times if it's rushed, you won't have an opportunity to test. And if you use those two techniques, it can prevent an awkward start to your audiovisual experience. Make sense? All right. Adjust volume for body mic. Now if you have a body mic, someone puts it on you, hopefully they will do the adjustments for you, but you won't have the opportunity to pull it closer or further from you. You'll just have to listen carefully and hear if you're loud enough, hear if you're soft enough, especially if it's a projection. So do the best you can if you have the body mic on you already. Visible face and mouth. So when I'm doing on-camera work, you want your mouth, eyes, and face to be visible. Psychologists have done studies that an audience will trust you more if they see your eyes, they see your mouth, they will hear you more clearly, they see your entire face, they will trust you more. So you want all those features to be visible to the camera. You don't want your mouth out of focus or out of frame. Voice. What sort of voice do you use when you're giving an interview or using a press conference? This is not the time to try out your announcer voice. Just your natural voice. Your slow, natural, engaged. All right? Excited about what you're saying, passionate about what you're saying. That will bring the necessary volume. When I coach clients, I don't say speak louder, I say speak with a more engaged tone of voice. Really believe what you're saying, and that will bring the necessary volume. Starting and stopping. So when you're starting your speech, or ending your speech, or whatever you're going to say on this video conference or interview, start with these aforementioned mic techniques. Full sentence minimum. I would not recommend a lot of one-word responses or answers over, say, a video conference, because sometimes that can get lost in a little static. And sometimes if there's a time delay, it'll just be like one word awkwardly placed in the middle of something else that's going on the other end. So start with the mic techniques, speak at least a full sentence, and be clear about where you're stopping. You don't want to trail off if you're on a video conference and people don't have the visual cues that you might be stopping or you might be done. So you want to be clear with your speech when you stop. Okay, some basics on sound. Eye contact. There's always the question, if you have a camera in the room, where do you look? So I've got a camera in this room. Do I look directly into the camera and connect with the audience that's watching it on TV, or do I look at the people in the audience? In this case, I look at the people in the audience because the camera is very secondary. That's just there for support. People see it later. But there are times I might want to look directly into the camera. If I am making eye contact with the studio audience, okay, so these are the two things. You can either make eye contact with the studio audience, which would be you all, or eye contact with the television audience would be the television watching on the camera. Remember, either way, if we're talking about an on-camera workshop, we're playing to the camera TV audience. So even though I'm talking to you, let's just pretend this is different than a class. We're doing this is a studio shoot, and I'm talking to you, but I'm playing to the camera. The important people are the camera. The important people are the people watching on the camera. Does that make sense? If I'm looking at you, the reason I'm looking at you is because I want the people watching on the camera to feel like they're in an intimate setting and they're getting the full in-person experience. Does that make sense? That would be the reason I would be making eye contact with you. If I want to engage directly with the people at home, I look straight into the camera and say, this is the on-camera workshop, and this is how you use the H technique. This is how you use this. Fully commit to looking in the camera. And you decide what would look better, what sort of feel are you going for? Are you trying to just give the television audience the in-studio feel, in which case you make eye contact with people in the room, or do you want to connect directly with them, in which case you look straight into the camera. Decide what makes more sense to you, and fully commit to one or the other. I've noticed that a lot when I look at the presidential debates that happened over the last several months. Sometimes the candidates, when they make their opening or closing remarks or they're on a roll, they will look straight into the camera. And sometimes they do it well, but often they will look into the camera for a little bit and then they'll kind of like look at other people and you get this darty eye, suspicious sort of look. Commit fully. It can be awkward to look into a big metal object that doesn't give you any feedback, so you have to imagine that there's someone else on the other end. As you're looking into that camera, you just have to visually think about the person, the people that you're connecting with. Imagine the camera as a person. I've heard imagine the camera as a pet, a friendly cat. All right, if that brings the emotions you need to create that connection with the people who you can't see. All right, open the camera, direct connection, commit fully. Imagine the camera as a person or a pet. All right. Ah, what is this? I took those out. Oh my God. Oh, whatever. All right. So if your audio visuals are different than you planned, you just have to adjust to it. Okay. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about lighting. Lighting is very simple. I will teach you very quickly this 3-point lighting system, which is what it sounds like. There's 3 points of lights that you can be aware of. If you're sitting at your desk doing a video conference, you can think, all right, I need 1 point here, 1 point here, 1 point here. And that will make me look better. It won't make me look like the shadowy person who's sitting in his office in New York. It'll make me look like the person who you can relate to and you can be inspired by and you can trust the next time you send me information or the next time you send me stuff that's important for your profession. So let me just lay it out to you, and then we'll remind ourselves after I lay it out to you that it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. 3 points. 1, you have a key light, which is your basic light, which will illuminate you. When you shine your key light on a subject, sometimes there's shadows. It doesn't cover everything. Maybe the key light would be coming from this angle, and you might see shadows in this area. So you would use what we call a fill light to fill in those shadows. And your face will be fully illuminated. There's still one remaining problem. You will tend to blend into the background unless you put some backlight behind you, either pointed directly at you, or sometimes you can point it at the wall just to illuminate the surface behind you, which gives you enough of a backlight effect. Those three things: key light, fill light, backlight. As an example, this is a young man with no light. Just the overhead lights. You never know exactly what you're going to get. We've got shadows around the eyes. You don't want to be remembered as that person on the video conference. So, well, let's shine a key light to illuminate some of the features on his face. You see we have the shadowy effect on that side. So now he wants a fill light from this direction. Boom. We've got the full face illuminated. We're looking pretty good. And this is not bad until you see how much we can really make this person stand out with a little backlight. Backlight is easy. It just might be shining a light at the wall to illuminate it. It might be just taking your desk lamp and kind of putting it behind you. We can do all this stuff very simply, very quickly. And it can make a big difference. All right. All right, yeah, I took this one out, but I'll let you enjoy it. Background capture. All right, we want to be aware of what we're wearing and what is in the background. This is exaggerated for fun, of course, but it can happen. This is another one I like. This is a great look if you're James Bond. It's not a great look if you're Bob from accounting. People will always remember you as the guy who blended into the background. Attire, what to wear, wardrobe choice. An answer to the question what you wear for your video conference, your interview, your press conference. Feel the part, feel comfortable. Think about what you're representing and dress appropriately. Feel as comfortable as you can at the same time. And I've seen some bizarre mistakes on either side of that. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to give an interview, I just want to be myself and be comfortable, and they wear a t-shirt or sweats or something. No, you need to remember what you're representing. This is not the time to be completely genuine. You want to feel as comfortable as possible, but realize there's going to be some sort of visual effect, some sort of technicality that's going to go with that. Color contrast, solid colors. Let's see, what do we have in the room? Yeah, so Amanda would be a good look, I think, on camera, and possibly Gokai, but he's wearing a pile shirt. But everyone else, at least David particularly, that would be dizzy on camera. Venetia, that would be a little dizzy, those stripes, and especially Maxine. That would just make the people in Tampa's head spin as they're trying to listen to her critique on the technical aspect of what's going on in the company. These dizzy patterns can dance. Here's a couple examples. All right, look at the lines. All right, how about this one? Flannel shirt. You might like to see this guy in your kitchen, but the stripes could be a little bit awkward as you are watching him on video conference. Okay, any questions about that? Let's talk about camera angles. By angles, I mean where. All right, VP chairperson has arrived. All right, in terms of camera angles, what I mean is where you put the camera. So if you look at the camera right now, that's a question of, do I put it low, do I put it high, do I put it straight on? The answer is straight on. You want the camera looking right at you, as close to eye level as possible. That gives you what you really look like, essentially. If it's too low, there can be some problems. If it's too high, there can be some problems. Straight on represents you and gives a full look at your face. If it's too low, contributes to what I call a heavy top. So if the camera was on the floor there looking up at me, one, it would be looking right up my nostrils. That's one awkward thing. The other is my face would just look bigger and more dominant on the screen. It would be like you're an ant looking up at me. Who is this person trying to push his authority around? There could be a similar problem if the camera is too high. It gives me kind of a mischievous, evil look, right? I'm a minion type of person if you're looking down on me. And also there's a problem where you don't see my eyes. You don't see the whites in my eyes as well as you would if you were looking straight on. And if you don't see the whites in my eyes, there's something creepy might be going on. I'll show you some examples of this and see if you agree. So heavy top, mischievous bottom, you want to avoid those. Big foreground. All right, the foreground is the space between me and the camera. The background is behind me, the foreground is here. By big foreground, I mean that objects in the foreground appear bigger to the people watching on TV. So if I were to put my hand right here, what would that look like to the studio audience? It would be this huge hand crushing them, coming down on them. So you want to be aware of that and not make sudden movements towards the camera, or not, sudden movements towards the camera. That's the big thing to be aware of. Camera assault, blended participants. Okay, so suppose there are two presenters. Actually, can you stand up for a minute, David? So suppose David and I are conducting a workshop, and stand kind of right there and face the class. Suppose stand there, stay there. So if we're conducting a workshop and maybe we're talking to you all right here, it may look fine the way you're looking at us, but the way the camera's looking at us, we're kind of blended together. So you want to be aware of the picture that the camera's creating, and we might stand like this. All right, do you want to take the next point, David? No, just kidding. Okay, go ahead and have a seat. Okay, let's take a look at some of these examples. What's going on? We got a big foreground, heavy top, mischievous bottom. Anything else awkward in the way these angles look? What's that?
No, the movie.
Oh, it says it's Kane? Yeah, glad you recognize it. We'll talk about it. What in terms of the angles,
Low angle?
Yeah, it's a low angle which contributes to the heavy top. Right? So you're looking right up his nose, and you're looking at him like he's some authoritative egomaniac, which actually in the movie he is, right? If you've seen this movie, Citizen Kane. That's the effect the director was going for, but not the effect that you want to use for your video conference for the accounting department. All right, what's going on here? So, question, what do you do if you see these two guys in your house? Run. You either run, call the police, or don't worry about it because it's already too late. So we have a high camera. So see how you can't really see their full whites of their eyes? Gives them that evil look. How about this young woman? What's Letitia? What's up? What do you think about this? She looks crazy. Okay. Okay. So what's wrong with the what? It's too high. All right. It's giving a mischievous bottom look. She might look crazy. Assuming you didn't think this person looked crazy, if this were a job candidate, an applicant, what sort of job do you think she would be applying for? Bartender?
Tattoo shop.
Tattoo shop? Certainly not the VP of marketing. Certainly not the director of sales. This is a person who might be in a submissive, less important role, just because of the angle. All right. How about this one? Someone who obviously didn't like Rick Santorum. What's going on there? His hand is stupid. Well, his hand's fine. There's nothing wrong with his hand. It's just the way he positioned his hand relative to the lens. He put it right here. And then how about the angle? What's going on there?
Low.
It's low. All right, so it's giving him that heavy top. You're looking at Rick Santorum's nose, and you're seeing shadows actually underneath his cheeks, kind of, and underneath the bottom of his eyes, or the tops of his eyes, rather. So you want the angle straight ahead, if possible. Last one. Blended participants. Got some funny things going on. We've got Joe, the intern, who no one listens to, off in this corner, right? We've got this blonde woman here, who kind of blends in with everyone. We've got this guy whose head is cut off, and is standing up for some reason, it's just not on the same page with everyone else. I guess we've got this woman, to me, looks like the most impressive person, the one who stands out, who knows what's going on with this team, just by looking at this picture. So if this team had thought through how this video conference might work more effectively, they would have spaced themselves out, make sure everyone, was visible, and also make sure that he's on the same level as everyone else. Okay, video conferencing, eye contact. All right, so those are some basics. Now we're going to talk about video conferencing, interviews, and press conferences, specifically how you would approach these. And again, sorry that I copied an older version of my slides, but you have the updated version of my slides on your handouts, so I'm going to take a quick look at those and make sure I am following along, even though I might be skipping a few things that I had on the older version. Okay, so when you're doing a video conference, there's this awkward thing that happens with eye contact. So suppose this is a computer screen and I'm video conferencing with someone in Phoenix. There is typically a camera at the top of your laptop, and then there's the screen where you see the other participants in the other site. Now if you look at the screen where you see the other participants in the other site, it's like you're following along with them, you're engaging with them, but what are they seeing in terms of your eye contact?
Looking down.
They see you looking down. All right, so what do they think about you and your connection to them when you're looking away? Okay, you're looking away. I mean, if I were, Letitia, if I were to try to talk to you and just look like this, Maxine, if I were to have a conversation and look off to the side, I would look weird. Why am I not looking you in the eye? They might realize it, but you're losing an opportunity to inspire them with your professional ability. You might be putting them off for some reason. Hopefully they will be a big person and realize that there's audio-visual challenges, but you, being smart business students and good communication professionals, have an opportunity to connect with someone by using some techniques to look them directly in the eye. You can do it two ways. One, you can just make a conscious effort to look into the camera and imagine that person. Two, you can also use a distance plus zoom option, which essentially means you put the camera or the computer further away from you and you try to manipulate the camera so it zooms in on you. Does anyone know how to do that with your camera? You can zoom in or have that functionality with your camera. If you do have it, not all computers have it, you can put the camera further away from you and zoom in on your face, and it makes the distance between the computer screen and the camera less. It makes the angle smaller. Does that make sense? So you can still look at the screen and it's not as bad in terms of not making eye contact on the other end. Video conferencing has understated body language. Typically in a video conference, if you have 3 or 4 people and you try to keep all 3 of them on the screen and not blend everyone together, it's harder for the people at the other side to see your body language, to read the nonverbal cues, because you're on a small screen. So often you might think that you're sending clear signals about what you're saying, how excited you are about this project, how you want whatever you want in terms of this meeting, but you're doing it non-verbally, and you need to realize that your body language is understated, so you need to rely more on physical words. Make sense? Time delays. Sometimes there's a second time delay on a video conference, or a 2-second time delay. This can be especially awkward if you give short one-word answers, and then by the time your answer is heard, the people on the other end have already started to move on to another subject, and they hear your voice saying, "Yes, I agree." And they're like, yeah, that's Zach over in Tampa. Don't worry about him. It's just kind of kooky. Remember their time delays, and I recommend using the full sentence minimum technique to help with that problem. Visual aids. You have to be very careful when you're explaining visual aids. I have a project, or I have an exercise we could have done tonight if we had more people, where the task is to explain a complicated graph to someone over a video conference. And it's challenging because you can't say to people who are in a different location, all right, you see down here, up here, and you know this. You need to have a method for saying, look at the bottom right, look at point A, look at point B, and as you can see, it increases. You just need to use extra work to clarify what you're talking about when you're using visual aids. Monotony and isolation. So, as you're having a video conference with people on a completely different site, they can easily become bored. They can easily think that you're not listening to them, or don't care about them, or don't know that they're there. So some things you can do to break through that monotony and isolation is consistently check in. So does everyone in Tampa agree with that? Does anyone in Cleveland have anything to say to that? Break it up. Sometimes these video conferences can be long and boring and people just can zone out. Also, to overcome this monotony and isolation, and good idea in general, is have overview techniques. Have a clear agenda when you're using a video conference. Preview information as it's coming up. So folks, now we're going to talk about the new HR process coding example. Everyone ready? All right, let's get to the main issues. Check in with a 30,000 foot view. So I know this is maybe a little confusing. We're talking about the coding issue. I just want to give everyone in Tampa and Cleveland and Houston an overview, and remember this relates to this point in the agenda. That's the 30,000 foot view. So now let's get back to the specifics. And review. I like preview, 30,000 foot view, review. Good techniques in general for meetings, especially critical at a video conference. Questions? Okay, let's move on to, oh, there's a question?
So is this something that you want us to implement while we're doing our exercise?
Sure, that'd be great. I would think about using some of this stuff when you're doing the exercise we're going to do in a few minutes. Absolutely.
3,000 foot view.
Yeah, so I think of these three together. So as you're going through topics in your conference, you might preview and say, all right, we're going to talk about the HR plan, and there are 3 points we want to talk about. Now let's talk about point 1, point 2. All right, we've been talking about point 2 a while. Let's back up, take a 30,000 foot view, and say, remember point 2 is the second critical piece of the HR thing. Everyone understand that's the big picture? Now let's get back to the nuts and bolts of it. And then once we're done, remember we talked about 3 points. And I know we got a little lost in point 2, but I used the 30,000 foot view to put it in context. All right, on-camera interviews. So, you're giving an interview for some reason, you're representing your company perhaps, you've got some new exciting developments, you had some terrible scandal and you have to give an interview as the marketing person. For whatever reason, you're doing this interview. A couple of concepts to keep in mind. First is what I call the one-way, two-way conversation. What do I mean by that? If I'm being interviewed, David is interviewing me here. He and I are having a two-way conversation. The camera and I are just having a one-way conversation. And really the only important conversation going on is the one-way conversation with the camera. The camera usually won't see him. Sometimes we'll see him every once in a while, but the people watching at home will typically just see me. And I need to remember that. All right, if he starts to agitate me, he starts to make funny faces at me, and that makes me mad, the people at home don't see that. They only see me getting mad. And I've seen Hillary Clinton is great at managing this one-way, two-way conversation. People will ask her the most annoying, offensive questions imaginable, and she will not get mad back at them. She will just smile and say, Yeah, I understand there's some real challenges in that regard, but I think the important thing to focus on is this, and this. So you need to remember the important conversation is here. It's not anything the interviewer does to upset you. Clothing, I took this out. I already talked about field apart. Posture, upright and forward. All right, you do not want to slouch. Something weird happens when you slouch. So you want to be upright and a little bit forward. When I slouch, it looks worse on camera. The reason for that is the lack of depth perception that the camera has. It doesn't see that there's this curve going on in my body, it just sees a more scrunched figure. So it makes it look much, much worse. So upright and forward. Overstated body language. Now a minute ago, I said a video conference has understated body language because typically it's a longer shot, the camera's further away. For a camera interview, a one-person interview, the body language is overstated because the camera is usually so close on your face. It sees every detail. You start to get nervous, you start to get frustrated, the camera and the people at home will realize that. So you just need to take a breath, realize that the camera is capturing everything, and be sincere and calm as you can. Truth times 10, close-up moments. An actor friend that I created some of this material with, he used these two things to describe overstated body language. The camera sees the truth times 10. The important moments in your life happen in close-up, with a camera close up to your face. And that's what an interviewer, a good interviewer, will try to capture, a real intimate moment with you. And you need to just be aware of that. Make sure that you're not doing anything with your face that looks overstated or awkward. Vertical. All right, so what do we do with the camera angle? Let me sit back down here. All right, so there's two questions on the camera angle. One is the vertical, either in terms of do we want it straight, do we want it down, or do we want it low? We already talked about we want it at eye level, right? We want it at 90 degrees. We don't want it high and make me look submissive. We don't want it low and make me look like a dominant, aggressive person. We want it straight at my eyes, eye level. There's also a question, where do I want it on the horizon? If I'm having an interview with David, do I want the camera a little bit over here? Do I want it here, or do I want it here? And the answer is, I want my eyes to be looking into the camera or as close as possible. So if I was getting interviewed by David, I might request that the camera be moved over a little bit. Because if I'm looking straight at David, the further the camera is that way, the less of my eyes the camera is going to see. One thing you can also do, if David is interviewing me and I have no choice, the camera's here, is as David's asking me questions, I can answer them right here. I can say, yeah, that's a good question, David. Now, I'm not making eye contact with David, but the camera doesn't know that. And I get my eyes a little bit closer to the camera. Does that make sense? Right. Okay, so what do we say when we are doing an on-camera interview? Do we just say, all right, I'm going to wait and see what the interview asks me, and I'll just respond to their questions appropriately? No. We plan out pretty much exactly what we want to say in an on-camera interview. And we just use the interviewer's questions as our opportunity to say those things. Right? That sound reasonable? There's nothing wrong with that. That's not cheating. You know you're going in for an interview. What do I want to say? And I'm going to say what I want to say, regardless of what the on-camera person, regardless pretty much, not 100%, but pretty much regardless of what that person asks me. So I need to think about what my key messages are and how they might be condensed down to sound bites. And furthermore, I want to think about what sort of questions I'm going to be asked so I can think about how I'm going to weave my key messages into those answers. Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State, said it best. I'm going to have to look this up. I think he may have even started a press conference this way. He may have said, does anyone here have any questions for my answers? He already knew what he was gonna say. He just needs to ask him, someone to ask him a question. So it seems like an engagement. All right. Reiterate positive questions, bridging and blocking for negative questions. What do I mean by those two things? Reiterate positive, blocking and bridging for negative. I'm going to take a guess. Why would I reiterate positive questions? If this is a press conference or an interview, and Orlando asks me a positive question like, how did you do such a great job with sales in 2015? I would restate it because I want to accent that one. I say, that's a great question, Orlando. You want to know how we just smashed all those sales records in 2015? All right, I'll tell you. This is how we did it. We did it with marketing, we did it with operations, we did it with hard work. Now, what if Orlando asks me a tough question? He's like, well, can you tell me why so many people quit and resigned in 2016 so far? All right, I don't want to repeat that. I want to bridge that to something positive. I might say, okay, so what I hear you saying, Orlando, is you want to know how we're changing as a company. Or what I hear you saying, Orlando, is you want to know how we're overcoming some of the HR challenges we've had. Well, the answer is this, this, and this. So instead of repeating his question, I bridge that to something positive that I want to talk about. Whatever I thought my key message was going to be, knowing that I would probably get that question. Reiterate positive, block and bridge to negative. Yeah, that's old stuff, old stuff, old stuff, old stuff. Press conferences. Okay, so we're going to hold a press conference. We just released a new version of our software. Everybody's excited about it. Let's hold a press conference. And we just spilled a bunch of oil on the whatever, the southeast coast. We hold a press conference and apologize. Why hold a press conference? Why did we not just send the press a written statement? This is our new software, or we're sorry about that oil spill. The answer to this question is because we have a message and a messenger. All right, we have a message that we want to deliver, and the person who delivers that is also important. So we can't just send a press release saying we're sorry. We can't just send a press release saying we're excited about this. We want to portray that message, but we also want to think about the person who is portraying that message and what the characteristics of that person and the way that person represents your company or represents whoever the press conference is for, enhance that message. So for press conference, we need to be aware of both those things. What's our message and who's saying it? So if you're on a crisis management team and someone says we should hold a press conference, who should we send? You can say, well, we want to be very careful about who we send, and we want to think that that person, we want to make sure that that person enhances the message that we're trying to send. Okay, prepared statement, messenger character, statement length. Okay, I think I cut out that stuff. We don't need to talk about this, so ignore this stuff. How long should it be? This press conference? Key thing to keep in mind, it should be newsworthy. So for a press conference, you might invite a bunch of folks. They might want to come because they have questions, and they're looking for answers that are newsworthy. And you want to control that by thinking about what are the sound bites you want to give them that they're going to use in their news reports, in their news write-ups. If you make that message too long, then they will have so much more ammunition, and they could use other things as sound bites that you maybe hadn't planned on. So you want to think about a concise press conference statement that has the right sound bites that work best for you and your company. You don't want to be too short because people watching may get annoyed that they're having their time wasted. You want to explain as best as possible, but not be too long and give the folks who are listening too many options for sound bites. You want to control the sound bites as much as possible. Any questions on that? Newsworthy, too short, too long. Okay, I think question Q&A. All right, so if you get some questions during a press conference, use the techniques we mentioned in interviews. Reiterate positive questions, blocking and bridging to negative questions. Right, I think that is it in terms of the content, in terms of the basics I wanted to go over before we do these exercises. Does anyone have any questions, comments on any of that? All right, so let's prepare to get started with these exercises. We're going to start first with the Live Long Annuity Conference. Let me see if we have everyone here. Are we missing folks? All right, so we've got our little Orlando here. We've got David for annuity processing. We've got Amanda has Skype hooked up, right? And what's that? And we've got Maxine. All right, maybe we can put India and IT together and New York together. But let's first what we're going to do is you're going to try to see if you can download and get Skype up running, and then the three of us, Orlando, you and me and Max, are going to connect on Skype right now. Those of you who are not involved in this connecting on Skype process, go ahead and maybe think about your role or review, get ready to practice, or or check your email or something else.
Question
Yes,
for the
Mitch.
VP. So is the teacher, she reading the full statement, or are they watching the press conference? Or?
Yeah, she's reading the full statement, she practiced that and is ready to answer questions on
I
it.
didn't practice that, I didn't really remember. Oh,
What?
wait, so I can look at the paper, right?
Yeah, you can look at the paper, you don't have to memorize it, you read it.
Oh my God. I thought I had to write it.
So they have a different,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I'm like, I don't know what that is. I didn't do that.
Alright, Skype. So here.
Oh my God. See,
It would be better to make it. Try to make the questions kind of based off the.
Okay, so one. Okay. Alright.
I don't remember.
We'll work around.
Yeah, I didn't email somebody who wasn't even in the class.
I was like, it was another teacher. She was my coworker.
Wow. Okay.
I was like, why didn't you come to class?
What about on cell phone?
Oh, you can do Skype on your cell phone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, then I could download it for that.
I think I have Skype with my cell phone.
I'll download it.
Alright, actually, Orlando, why don't you and Maxine get connected on Skype while I'm doing this?
I was trying to print out my syllabus. I can get the script, but.
Just ask her what her Skype name is and try to like
Hold on,
find
give
her.
me a second. I'll get to it.
Alright, search, alright, Orlando, what's your Skype name?
Get it.
Um,
Yeah, he was not
Pretty
even
much
like.
use my email address, right? Or no?
Facts.
My Skype name is Zach Williams 212. See if you can search for me.
He was so nonchalant about it, like, it happened. Like, shit happened.
212?
Yep.
So this be, that'll be mine then, right? So we, overseas and, oh, I lied,
Can you spell it for me?
like, number 4,
4?
S-E-A-S-O-N,
S-E-A-S-O-N.
O,
O.
L-I-E.
L-I-E.
trust also that we believe the president's sense.
Oh, is this someone trying to connect with
And
him?
the sorrow.
Okay.
No.
accident that should never have happened. We have always met our obligations and
Hey, can you turn that
responsibilities.
off while we're trying to
And
do
we
this?
have
Alright, yeah, it's, just try it again. Zach Williams, Zach Williams 212.
That's what I have as in my profile.
Some of the questions at the end, they were showing questions.
How do you log on?
Is it two?
Credentials?
I'm gonna try to search for it.
How do you log on to the computer?
It's, your username and password for Mac.
Okay. Try to open here. Who's connecting with me?
Who am I getting?
What's that?
What do I have?
What did you, Zach Williams 212, did you find?
Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got me?
Yep.
Just try to call me. There it is, here, okay. Hey! Fantastic.
Too close to each other.
That's fine. Alright, we're gonna hang out. I'll hang out. Alright, you got it? You're good. I just need. Put it all together, like one word. Yep.
Yep.
This is something about.
Got it. You gotta go to add contact.
Add contact.
Yeah, I guess if you go to search, you're probably just searching for people.
Okay. So call me. Hello? No, Justin. Just the video.
We should go different rooms and do.
Yeah, I can't see it though.
No,
just
I see.
Just the video at the bottom, like it has it lined through the camera probably.
There you go.
Well, you can see me, I can't see you. I can't see you.
Do you wanna accept, yeah, sorry. Yeah, alright, yeah, excellent, so we got you, David, we're just waiting on Maxine and we're good. Alright,
So don't download it to my phone?
I have it.
Oh, okay.
David's got it for you. Alright, so let's see. So. Okay, so yeah, so David, you and Amanda are gonna go somewhere. I called the facilities manager about getting another room, he just told me not to worry about it, just find something, and he never got back to me. So you and Amanda are going to hook up on your phone, and you're gonna go somewhere. Maxine is gonna go somewhere by herself. Actually, let's do this, oh yeah, Maxine will, no, Maxine will just stay here. Maxine and everyone else will stay here. So Orlando, you'll go somewhere by yourself. David, you and Amanda will go somewhere by yourself. And everyone else will stay here and watch Maxine talk on my computer.
What about her computer?
Alright.
We're going to one place or we're going to separate places?
You and David are gonna go somewhere?
Okay. Like we're leaving right now?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
No, we can hang out for a minute.
I think her computer works then.
Okay, so one of the three of us will get connected again now. So David, why don't you call me? And Orlando, why don't you call me as well?
Is everyone calling you? So I'm just-
Yeah, we're just gonna have you talk on this computer, Maxine. Okay. So can I add you to this call? Actually, let me call you Orlando. So I've got David.
Do I have to add him?
Oh, can you, wait,
I don't have him.
you don't have, okay.
I think you might have to initiate it, and
Yeah.
maybe you have to call me and then call him. Cause I think I'm the host right now,
Oh, okay.
so you probably have to host, you have to call me and then add him.
Okay, so I will call you.
I think it's the video button, next, type this message on the right, in the bottom. Is that it?
Okay.
Maybe not. Oh no, that's a voicemail.
Looking good.
Try double clicking my name.
You said that.
Weird. Oh yeah, maybe that's, oh that's
There it
it.
is.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Hit the video button on me.
Okay,
Oh.
you're both my contacts, so I'm gonna call you first. Okay. And then I'm gonna add Orlando. Four. Yes. Yes. You getting a call from your Orlando?
Oh, it's gonna be.
Full fail. It's not even connected to me. I'm not even on it.
Alright, let me hang on, let me try.
Yeah, something got messed up.
Alright. Alright, here we go. Okay. Add. Such as David. Conversation. Video.
So you can't add more than one?
No, you can, it just, it's a little fussy when you don't know the people.
Oh.
Alright, cool.
It's not showing your picture either.
Maxine, while you're waiting, why don't you go ahead and try to, why don't you go ahead and try to add me? Zach Williams